I spent a lot of time this week waiting to testify online for a bill that's coming for the legislature here in New Jersey to establish a state definition of anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. The definition of anti-Semitism is what was proving so controversial, and dozens and dozens and dozens of people wanted to give testimony. My name never got called. So I get to give my piece here. Part of what proved controversial was the idea that people thought that this was a bill that was going to chill speech. Now, free speech is important. I think that there shouldn't be government policing of speech within the normal boundaries of incitement to violence, etc. But historically, bigoted speech is covered by the First Amendment and should continue to be, whether it's anti-gay or anti-Semitic or anti-black or whatever the case may be. It's permitted. And historically always has been. This wouldn't change that. The issue is more for hate crimes legislation, like when somebody claims that a hate crime has been committed, like how do you determine that? Now, I would be happy if there weren't hate crimes legislation and crimes were just punished for the crime itself without trying to determine motivation, because then the government gets into the position of policing speech. But we do have hate crimes laws, so you need guidelines for anti-Semitism. And I don't think this would chill speech any more than any other hate crimes law chills speech. Why is this? Because I think for many other types of bigotry, it's clear people have an inherent understanding of how that bigotry shows up. For horrible things like anti-black bigotry, the bigot wrongly thinks less of black people and sort of looks down on them and wants to keep them down, thinks they're less than. And this is often true for people who wrongly hold views of anti-gay views, anti-Muslim views, things like this. They think the person is less than anti-Hispanic, and they want to keep them down. Anti-Semitism shows up often differently. The bigot thinks that they're punching up, not punching down. They have a sense of, oh, this is a group that has too much. They have too much power, too much influence, too much money, and so I'm doing something righteous. I'm being a good person by trying to bring them down a notch. This isn't something that is always clear to people, and it's important to have that. So when somebody looks to determine, oh, is the claim of hate speech here legitimate or not, they know that there's a historical precedent for it. There's also claims that this prevents people from criticizing the state of Israel. That's absolutely not true. It absolutely doesn't touch on critiquing the state of Israel. I criticize the state of Israel all the time, and I'd be happy to spend hours saying bad things about the current government and the prime minister. It's about comparing Israel in ways that touch on traditional anti-Semitic tropes, and even more specifically, comparing actions of the state of Israel to Nazi actions when there are, say, many, many, many more apt comparisons. With any ethnic group, there are specific tropes and ideas that have a specific bigoted historical resonance, and it's different for different groups. With Jews, Nazism touches on many of those. There also were people testifying, anti-Zionist Jews, saying that, well, I'm Jewish, and I oppose this legislation, so it can't be a definition of anti-Semitism if I, a Jew, disagree with it. Or there was what seemed to me disingenuous situations of people saying, well, I'm a Semite, meaning that somebody who's Palestinian or Arab or both. And since Semite includes that, then I can't be anti-Semitic. One, that's not the definition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism means Jew hatred. So the I'm a Semite argument is a little disingenuous. There's anti-Arab bigotry. That's its own thing and is wrong. It doesn't include me because I'm Jewish and I oppose this isn't a great argument either. Of course, we know there are situations where, I don't know, somebody can say that, how can you accuse me of sexism for calling my a male saying that I calling my female coworker beautiful. My last female coworker loved being called beautiful. Well, that might be fine. That might be actually what she felt, but it's still sexual harassment for you to do it to this individual, even if not all people in the class feel the same way. The definition of harassment is more localized individual, and it doesn't mean that every single member of this group feels it, or even that there are significant minorities in this group that feel it. The question is, does the individual experience it legitimately as discrimination or harassment or bigotry? there's an increase in anti-Semitism, as with other bigotries. It is worthwhile to have laws opposing it, and the legislature reasonably can set guidelines for what that may be. It just means that they consult it. It doesn't mean that everything in this will count as anti-Semitism, and it certainly doesn't mean that you can't say it. You can always say whatever you like. The issue is, in terms of hate crimes, are we going to have guidelines for it? This is a reason to do it. The Torah bit of this is, this week in the Torah we read that, when the bit that we always say when we take out the Torah, that when the Israelites moved through the desert, they would lift the ark and they would say, "Arise, God, may your enemies scatter." Now, it's a way of acknowledging that. I don't think it's so true here in New Jersey, but there are other places in the world where there are enemies of people who don't wish us well. And that needs to be dealt with. Acknowledging hatred, acknowledging these things is just part of responsible citizenship. Shabbat Shalom.